Grocery workers have, of course, been on the front lines throughout this pandemic. According to the United Food and Commercial Workers International Union, over 11,500 of their workers have been affected by the virus.
But the lives of those essential workers were not easy even before this pandemic. So Despotism on Demand, How Power Operates in the Flexible Workplace by Alex Wood. It goes behind the scenes at two major retailers in the UK and the US. It documents how precarious scheduling can lead to havoc on workers' lives, along with their daily struggles. Alex is a lecturer at Birmingham University, and he joins us now via Skype. Alex, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us.
No worries. Nice to be there.
Absolutely. Alex, tell us a little bit about your book, your investigation, and working with grocery store workers and how flexible work scheduling has impacted their lives, and then put that in the context of the coronavirus pandemic.
So about 20% of American workers don't know what their schedules are going to be, don't have any input into those schedules. So they'll be given their schedule maybe a week before, and then will have to live with that schedule. So I really wanted to investigate what did that mean for people's lives. And what I found was it kind of really was a real nightmare for people. People couldn't plan their childcare. People were having to decide whether to go to work to earn money for their family or provide childcare for their children. People couldn't plan their social lives. So somebody who I spoke to wanted to be able to play baseball, but it was impossible for him to commit because he never knew what his hours were going to be. Other workers, they couldn't plan their home lives at all. And so it just caused a huge amount of stress, insecurity, and anxiety for workers. And they're really at the whims of their managers as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just tell us some of the very specific stories that you heard and that you think that people should know about.
So one US worker in Los Angeles told me about how one of her colleagues' social services were called on her because she was told to come into work at the last minute, given no choice about whether she came in or not. She couldn't afford to lose her job. She wouldn't be able to survive without her job. And so she had to leave her child at work. And really, this is the sort of choice that leave them at home. And this is the sort of choice that people are having to make every day, in order to keep their jobs. And it's really kind of causing this huge amount of stress and anxiety and suffering. Other people, as soon as they kind of aren't in the good books of a manager, their hours will be taken away. Some workers in the US had joined kind of union-backed workers association, and then as punishment, they'd go into work after going to a protest, and then find that their hours had been completely taken or just shifted around, so they're now meant to be working when they're meant to be providing childcare.
Well, one of the interesting things we've seen, Alex, is that these workers were, of course, the most needed in the middle of this pandemic, right? And that they actually haven't really been compensated, and that many of their lives probably were thrown into havoc, maybe by contracting the coronavirus, maybe having to acquire some personal protective equipment for themselves. Can you speak a little bit to that matter?
Yeah, I think what the coronavirus has really shown is what jobs are so essential to our society and our economy, and how we should be respecting those workers, both kind of how they're being paid, but also economically, how they're being provided with benefits, but also kind of the esteem we hold them in society. And so one of the major concerns for the workers was they just didn't feel they were being respected. They felt like this way they were being treated by management with scheduling really didn't provide them with any sense of respect or worth at all. And I imagine this is just going to get worse with, as you say, kind of coronavirus, meaning these workers are bearing the brunt of kind of being these even more uncertain economic times.
Right. And another author and researcher, I'm blanking on the name, coined the term the precariat for the mass of U.S. workers who live in these very, the scheduling is very uncertain. You may be forced to close one night and then open the next morning. God knows how you're going to figure out childcare for that. You've got no notice, as you're pointing out. So you can't plan your life or plan that childcare, even if it was a possibility. Earning low wages. So maybe they want to pick up a second job. You can't do that if you don't know what the schedule schedule is going to be. So you've got that aspect at the same time. And people don't have, defined benefit pension plans anymore, so your retirement isn't secured. Don't have health care, so their health care isn't insured, just isn't secured. Just on every level in their life, things are sort of precarious and they're hanging on by a thread, living in fear of one financial disaster that will just send them into financial oblivion. It's unconscionable, the number of Americans who live like that. What are the sort of broader trends, both culturally and from a labor market perspective, that have led to those dynamics?
Yeah, I would say it's not even a precariat, because it's kind of everybody. It's kind of so many workers are facing different forms of insecurity. And so just scheduling, it's 20% of American workers. Then there's other forms of insecurity. And what we've really seen is the decline over the last 30 years of collective regulation of the workplace. So in the US, there used to be unions who'd be involved in scheduling. There was internal labor markets, so administrative rules which governed how people could be scheduled. And those collective protections have really been demolished since the 1970s and 1980s. And that's happened at the same time there's been this growth of data. So employers can now model their demand much more closely. And if you want to be profitable, then you want to match your labor supply as closely as possible to that demand. So there's kind of this economic and economic pressure, a technological feasibility, and a lack of social protections and collective regulations. And we see this across Europe as well, even Sweden, Germany. There's a big problem with precarious scheduling. And so we really need to look at how we can empower workers within the workplace and rebuild collective institutions and collective forms of regulation of the workplace.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alex, for doing the work and for writing the book. Everybody should go and check it out. And we'll have more Rising for you after this.